Terrence Popp here with another episode of Live from the Lair. And I've had probably about 50 guys send me requests and articles and so forth in regards to the craziness that is building up just outside of the Ukraine. Now, Russia, they flexed their muscles in 2014-ish, and they took back their Crimea, and we didn't really do shit about it. And now they're getting ready to do almost the exact same thing to the Ukraine. In fact, a lot of their troop movements and so forth are virtually identical. And for most of the people out there that don't know this, there has been a low priority, but there has been basically a low intensity conflict going on in the Ukraine along the border and so forth, with Russia's proxy units, which is basically their Spetsnaz and other special forces units, are mixing in with some of the locals who want the Ukraine to go back to being under the Russia. Now, this whole conflict that might happen, and the way it's looking, because we have a pussy for a president, it's probably 60 to 70% chance it's going to happen. Oh, I didn't see you there. I thought you were done staring at my ugly mug, so I brought you this one. I'm not even going to try to say the company name that makes this, because y'all know I'm as dyslexic as hell. But you can check the links in the description and buy one for yourself. Patriarchy, building civilization for 5,000 years and counting. Winning. If you want to drink deeply from the cup of expendability, well, this is a good start. Did I say expendability? I meant to say truth. One of the things that would radically reduce that is if other countries come in to support Ukraine with their air forces, because the Ukraine Air Force is just a little bit above notional at best. I'll go into the numbers for their aircraft and so forth, but a lot of their equipment and airplanes and so forth, they inherited from the USSR when it basically collapsed in 91 to 92. There have been some upgrades that have taken place for some of their stuff, but mainly they really started speeding that whole thing up 2016, 2015-ish. I don't have the information to exactly what weapon systems were upgraded and what was put on them and so forth. So from what I've been able to see, Russia had somewhere around 100,000 troops off the border with Ukraine. They pulled 10,000 back, and then I think there's another 5 or 10,000 shuffling to the rear. But that could easily just, be units rotating back to rest and coming back, or it could be just a mindfuck. I don't know. The only thing that is in the Ukrainians' favor is the fact that they do have a respectable ground force. Russia's ground force, is basically relying on them winning air superiority, and then they can just wreak havoc and basically have their way. And I think they're betting on the fact that the populace of the Ukraine, they don't want a bloodbath, and they want to fall back under this, Russia / the former Soviet Union. Listen, Russia, they lost their ass in 92. They spent about 10 years digging themselves out of that hole. Another 5 years bringing themselves above water. And roughly since 2005, 2006, they've been steadily basically upgrading and trying to modernize their armies to come up to speed with, NATO and the Western world. Do they have some cutting edge platforms? Yes, they do. They have some hypersonic missiles. They have a lot of long range anti-aircraft missiles, which fly in the neighborhoods of between 6 and 11, Mach 6 and 11, which most fighters are not going to be able to get out of the way once they show up on their screens when shit's going that fast. They have upgraded a lot of their artillery, and they do have modern cutting-edge tanks, though they don't have the numbers that, in my opinion, are enough to sway the ground battle. They just don't have the numbers. Their frontline main battle tank is very respectable, but it is goddamn expensive, and the Russian GDP is the equivalent of South Korea. This is basically what I've been able to find out what the Ukraine has on the ground. Now, roughly, their main force is basically 297,000. That includes Air Force, Navy, and what have you. They have the ability to swell this up to, basically 780,000 if they activate all the reservists and guard units, which is the equivalent of what we have over here. But, that could take up to 30 days. I have a feeling if this thing kicks off, it's going to be settled inside of 10 days. So this might not even come into play. The Ukraine has roughly 2,430 tanks. They do have some of the older ones, but a large majority of their tank force is, T-62, T-64s, and 72s. They do have some T-80s. I do not believe they have any T-90 tanks. And the T-55s were rotated out a long time ago. I don't even know if those are still on the planning board. All right, they have 2,800 artillery pieces with roughly 800 of them self-propelled. The rest of them are towed. If you lose the air war and your vehicles start getting torn up, those self-propelled or those towed artillery pieces are pretty much null and void. Okay, they do have 11,435 armored vehicles. A lot of the BTRs and BMPs and so forth, and other armored trucks and what have you, that was basically left behind by the Soviet forces in '92. And some of those BMPs have been upgraded and have the newest anti-tank missiles that they were able to basically buy on the open market. See, Russia sells arms as well. They buy a lot of stuff from other countries that Russia sells to. It's basically a vicious circle. Plus, we sell them arms and ammunition as well. All right, now, like I was saying, their Air Force is shit. They have roughly 40 to 60 attack aircraft to include fighters. And they are outdated. I think the newest ones they have are MiG-25s. Up against some of the, fourth, fifth generation fighters that exist out there that have very small radar sections. It's not going to go well for them. All right. If they do not get air support or other countries coming to their aid with their air forces, this is the Achilles heel right here of the Ukraine forces. All right, they do have somewhere between 40 and 50 attack helicopters. Yes, they do have a lot of the Hind Ds, and several of those have been upgraded and modernized virtually up to the 2020 standard. But it is what it is. I believe they do have some Apaches and a few other attack helicopters from other countries. I don't know the exact inventory, All I know is it's still, for supporting your forces, that's not a lot of attack helicopters. All right, and their Navy, all right, it's a straight up joke. It really is. It's basically the weakest Navy in all of the countries that put ships into the Black Sea. It's shameful. I think they have like one frigate. They have a whole bunch on the drawing board or in dry dock getting built, but a lot of good that's going to do when you have 100,000 Russians just chomping at the bit to come over and start kicking ass and taking names. All right, we're going to move over to the other board here. All right, now, I did not go into a lot of detail in the MTOs of all of the units because, let's face it, it would take a long time, and most of you guys out there would not understand exactly how this all works. Now, the Russians still operate off of the order of battle that they developed in the 90s. There's been some upgrading to that. Now, the Ukrainians have been training with NATO and are up to speed on a different order of battle. That could be in their favor. But let's face it, a lot of the people calling the shots in the Ukraine were trained by the Russians, and they're probably going to fall back and fight that way. Now here we have 15 total mechanized brigades that are on the ground rolling around in the Ukrainian right now. We have 5 motorized brigades that are also active rolling around. And then we have 2 mountain infantry brigades. Now, these units generally do not roll around by themselves. They may, but the way I see it is most of these assets are rolled into the 15 mechanized brigades. Sorry for the tongue twister there. All right, now, the MTO of a mech brigade. All right, you have 3 mechanized battalions, 1 tank battalion, 1 motorized battalion. Thus you have like the tanks and the motorized, basically fed in here. You have a artillery regiment per brigade. All right, now think about that. All right, a regiment is 2 cunt hairs and a nipple shy of a division. All right, that's a lot of cannons. That's a lot of artillery. Coming in the future, I'm gonna dig into the Russian MTO and try to find out exactly what they have on the ground and so forth. They also have an anti-air battalion, but the Ukrainian anti-air, I believe, is woefully outdated. I don't know if they have upgraded systems that were supplied by the United States or NATO. If they're using the old Soviet shit, that shit works really good on, 1970, 1980 aircraft, maybe some of the early 90 aircraft, but since then there have been a lot of developments. So, in my opinion, a lot of these anti-air systems that they are sporting, basically just tie a chain to them and use them as a boat anchor. All right, you have an engineer battalion. It's actually fairly common. Even in the American Army, we usually attach either an engineer battalion or company to a brigade. I think the Russian MTO uses a lot more obstacles and trench work because, during World War II, they developed a lot of their MTOs when they defended in depth. All right, which means they have 3, 4, 5 basically lines of defense, and they collapse backwards. And as the enemy moves forward, the defense gets stronger because it's actually being added to by the next echelon as they fall back. It's actually pretty wicked. And I actually bring this up in my book, The Warrior's Way, Soldier's Soul. Defense in depth is it's very economical, and it's very effective, and the American Army should use it more. It is used, but it's glossed over in a lot of the war colleges. I don't know if the American Army is, they think they're never going to need that, or they're just too good for it. In my opinion, the American Army is setting their own death trap, and they're baiting it with pride and arrogance. Defending in depth needs to be taught no matter what. All right, now I want to look deeper into Logistics Battalion. I am pretty sure that they still have landmines. NATO frowns upon that. But landmines, they work. Okay. You can deny and you can slow much stronger and greater forces. So it buys you time to plan, channel, build up your forces to counterattack or get reinforcements from another country. So I have a feeling if this goes down, you're going to see a lot of landmines. And then you have the recon company. All right, I was part of a recon company, a company of 425, Lair Airborne Infantry, which is basically long-range reconnaissance. You have a sniper company attached to the brigade, and then you have a radar company, NBC company, and medical. Now, medical company for a brigade, in my opinion, is a little light. Typically, for a whole brigade of dudes, you probably want to have a medical battalion with 3 companies. And then you should be able to attach one medical company to each one of these battalions and so forth, because, when it gets fast and furious and they start using artillery and shit goes fucking crazy, people are going to get wounded and killed. Depending upon the medical apparatus you have on site will determine how many people become wounded and how many people become killed. All right, like a medical company is roughly 120 dudes. That's 120 dudes spread out for a brigade. And that's not 120 doctors. You probably got 12 doctors, a bunch of nurses, and then you have support staff for said medical company. Now, we also have to take into effect the 1/3, 2/3 rule. Of the 297,000 people that they have on their active armed forces, only 1/3 are frontline fighters. The rest are support. So, the way it's looking, the Ukraine has roughly 100,000 guys on the ground ready to fight, and so do the Russians. So I am going to go into further detail in the breakdown of some of the Russian MTO and order of battle. And I'm also trying to find out exactly what's on the border and where they're located. A lot of that's hard on open source. I don't have inroads anymore to people in the know, so I have to look at a bunch of different sources and read between the lines. Okay, like I said before, this is looking like it's 60 to 70% chance it's going to happen. The only thing that could possibly sway that chance to be lower is if air assets come on board to support the Ukrainian forces, and if Russia can't get air superiority within 72 hours, 3 to 6 days, it's pretty much going to turn into a stalemate, especially if the Ukrainians want to put up a good fight. That's just the way it is. All right, I think I've droned on long enough. Hopefully you enjoy this. Let me know in the comments. I'll talk to you later. Out.